Hey, do your backgrounds look like this? Is it maybe because you suck at backgrounds? Today, you're going to learn my trade secrets for how you can impress clients, turn heads, and blow the pants off art directors. Welcome to the Art Mentor. My name is Sean, and today you're going to watch me transform these two artworks from my mentees. So make sure you watch this whole video all the way through and take some notes on this. Alright, now first off, we're going to take a look at Cesar, who is one of my mentees who's been in my program for the last 3 months. So we're going to take a look at this artwork from him of this really cool sorceress who's in a forest that has this really dark, brooding mood about it. And I've loved this piece since I first laid eyes on it. However, though, there's definitely some things that he learned how to do that you can learn too, friends, on how to make your backgrounds much better and your illustrations way stronger. It's going to start with this. So if I go ahead and I turn on a black and white filter, generally the value structure for the foreground to the middle ground to the background, it's kind of all the same. You see that happening right there? Now I definitely recommend that you tackle your value structure at the beginning, the middle, and definitely the end of all of your illustrations. So correcting this is a piece of cake, y'all. One of the things I recommend you do here is just go ahead, make sure that you have all those components on separate layers. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a levels layer to just adjust all of that. Since they're all in separate layers, super easy to do. You're going to see me lighten the background. I'm also going to darken the foreground. And then one of the things I noticed too is that I thought that head got lost. And I wanted to add a much better light sourcing effect from behind because I think it would look really strong with this one to help separate out the character. So I added this kind of like moon glow behind her. What do you think? So far, we're making some really good progress. We got a couple more things to do though. All right, y'all, listen up. Here's a big mega tip for you, okay? When you're gonna be making entire background scenes, you need to focus your artwork like it is just like a camera. It can't focus on everything with the same degree of sharpness. So one of the things that I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna add some blur effects onto my background so that I therefore focus solely onto my character. So to do this, you can use one of two different types of blurs. For me, I generally like to use the motion blur. So that is, you go to filter, blur, and then motion blur. So check this out. Watch what happens to this. And it's a little bit of a subtle effect, but it's definitely going to sharpen up this entire image and focus you into the character. Again, I'm just going to, as things come forward in my background, I want to go ahead and I want to lessen that degree of blur so that it's boom onto the character. Now I am going to exclude the branch that she is sitting on because that just wouldn't make sense. That would be sharp, it would be focused because it grounds the character. So what do you think? See how that works now? Look at that. It's a little bit more subtle, but because it's not as sharp in the background, now we see the character. She really comes out and she steps out and she comes alive, right? You see that happening? Real easy effect that most people don't do, and I always teach people how to do well. Now the next thing I recommend you do in a background like this is definitely think about the overall mood of this one. Now to do this, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use just a nice cloud or a mist brush. You can find these literally anywhere. I personally like to find all my custom brushes on DeviantArt. What I wanna do is I'm gonna use some of that ambient color from the background, and I wanna go ahead and I wanna start to add this atmosphere. What this does, it's gonna add some complexity, it's gonna add some mood, it's gonna add some really nice atmosphere into the piece so that this helps it look like this magical forest, and it's gonna sell the entire idea of this scene so much better. And I definitely recommend that you do this over all of your landscape elements in layers, just like I'm doing right here. There we go. Now we're getting something there. Now we're starting to get a much better impression of different layers. So definitely think about how you can apply this stuff as well as this too. Now, one of the things I definitely want to do here at this point is I want to make sure that my character is very readable. So one of the things I recommend you do, like I'm going to do right here, is I'm just going to zoom out a whole lot. I still feel that she's getting lost a little bit. So one of the things I want to use that I did earlier now I set myself up for is I want to go ahead and I want to add more of a rim light effect. So now as I'm doing this, I'm going to be adding this rim light subtly from behind. Now listen y'all, here's a big tip for you. If you ever add a rim light onto your character, what you have to do first, you have to make sure that you have a dark shadow before you go ahead and you add a rim light. If you have a light or a medium area and you try to add a rim light on, it's just going to subtly blend in. It's not going to have the same exact effect. Now the way that Cesar's set up his overall light structure here, where it's coming from the top right more towards the front than the back, was really smart. That sets him up really well. So you need to have a complementary light source effect in order for you to add a rim light effect on. But check out what happens here when I do this. Look at how much better this looks now. You can definitely see the character, boom, from a distance. So much easier, right? Now the last step on here I want to give you is on adding particles and effects, and here's the difference it's going to make. So as a last tip, one of the things I want to do here, and I recommend you do too, is you want to add some noise, you want to add some texture, you want to add some sense of realism. Like in a forest right here, it would not be just neat and clean. And this is something that I see a lot of people do too, where they just want everything to look just neat and clean. But listen, even if you've got a cartoony or an anime style, you should and could definitely do this to really pump this up, to bring it to a next level. And what this is going to do, especially for Cesar's artwork here, is that it's going to go ahead and give it the effect that this is a living, breathing forest, that there would be dust and dander particles all over the place, and it looks like this. All right, y'all, you ready for this big reveal? Here's before, and boom, here's after right now. Wow, look at all of this great work. Now look, Cesar applied everything that I said and more. What do you think about Cesar's artwork? Let me know down below. I know he'll be reading this too. I believe that helping artists is my mission in life, and if you enjoyed this, if you got something good out of this video right now so far, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for more content just like this, so that more artists just like you can benefit from it. And hey, if you really want to benefit and really take your art to the next level and you're ready for that, let me tell you about my Art Mentorship program. So this is my one-on-one coaching system. It's not a course, it's not a class, it's not generic content. This is me and you working one-on-one to meet your goals, to get into your career, to get the attention of the art directors that you want to get. So what you get out of this is a unique, tailored program that's going to solely focus on what you need to do to bring your art to the next level. So if you want to be my client and you want to learn more about my Art Mentorship program, check out the link down below, fill out that Google form, and I'll reach out to you soon. Now let's move on to the next one. Check this out. Another mentee of mine here is Johnny. Johnny has been taking commissions for a while, and he wanted to bump up his pay rate, and he wanted to start to attract more clients, and here's how he's going to do it. So Johnny made this awesome artwork of this mage that's going to explore these catacombs here. Really nice job. I think we've set the scene quite well. However though, I see some things that can definitely help to sell the idea here. One of the things I really like about Johnny's artwork here is that this is an interior scene, which I don't see a lot of people do. One of the first things I asked him here was, what's the focus? Because is it on the background or is it on the character? Because you got to make that determination. Because unless you're trying to make like a Dark Souls image, kind of like this one you're seeing right here, then it's not about the environment. So here's how I would fix it so that there's more character, less environment. Whenever you're going to do an illustration, if the focus is on the character, you need to bring the emphasis to the character. So make sure that they are the primary focus in that scene. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to resize them a little bit and reposition them so that it still looks aesthetically pleasing. So there's the result that we got here. You can definitely see that she is large, in charge, and she just fits the scene a whole lot better. Now the next thing on here that I noticed really instantly as soon as I opened this up is that if we're inside of a cave, why is it so warm inside of that cave? There's no evidence of any real torches or lights or anything like that, so that doesn't really make sense. So here's the thing, if you have a cold and dark and brooding environment, it should appear that way from a temperature perspective. So here's how I would go ahead and fix that and how I'd recommend you do too. So two ways you can go about correcting this. Easily, you can either go ahead and create a gradient map, or for me, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna create a hue saturation layer, and I want that to be a desaturated blue. Make sure it's not saturated now. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna cool down the entirety of the scene, right? And then I'm also gonna go ahead, I'm gonna mask out where that light's coming from, because I do want that warmth coming in just to show how the character is receding from safety into not so safe, right? See what that does for it? Now the last thing I did here was I just added on a little bit of a levels adjustment because I wanted to darken up that foreground a little bit. Again, just so that we get the sense of where we are now traversing into an unknown, a dark and unexplored area. The next step on here that's really gonna punch this up is the use of ambient light. Now, what that means essentially is this. As you take a look at this character here, she has this really cool green swirling magic effect happening, right? However though, it's magically not impacting the environment around it. So what you gotta remember is that whenever you have another light sourcing effect, particularly magic and stuff like this, or torches or candles, things like that, it should naturally pollute what the natural colors are within the entire environment. Now you can think of ambient light also as the term bounce light, because that magic is going to bounce off the floor, it's going to bounce off the wall, it's going to pollute some of the shadows there as well. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to introduce some of those greens, and then that's going to kind of make some of those shapes a little bit more visible, but I don't want to overkill it, and neither do you too. Now, here's a basic thing you want to remember is that the further away an object is from that magic light source, the less it's going to be impacted by it. It's only going to be more saturated the closer it is. Just like this. So here you can see the ground, you can see the rocks, you can see the beams a little bit more, right? Now we're ready to move on to the next step. Just like my last character here, I want to go ahead, I want to add a rim light on because that light that's coming all the way from behind, it's so bright, it's so intense, it would definitely illuminate her. Now here's the great thing too, it's gonna make her pop a ton more. Check this out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a really bright warm color like an orange yellow color, and I'm going to make sure that I highlight around her. Now what's going to do really well here is that now we're going to bring some warmth into some of those cool zones that we established earlier, and therefore it's going to allow you to actually see that character, because again, if you zoom out all the way and your character's looking lost in your environment, that is a sign that it is ineffective in either its value structure or its temperature structure too. So make sure that you fix stuff up like this, and then definitely you can think about adding on a rim light or a secondary light source in order to bring some of those dark areas back into focus. But again, the rim light will only show best where you have a shadow in that area. So you see it a lot, particularly around her left side and towards her bottom as well. Now I want to go ahead, I think I'm ready to go ahead and fix up her anatomy a little bit, particularly on the head, the arms. So I definitely wanted this to have a better appeal to how she's casting magic and how she's carefully scanning and looking around a little bit more dramatically. Now listen, if you are not great at doing stuff like this, particularly hand gestures, like magic casting hand gestures, here's my advice for you, friend. This is powerful, so listen up. Make sure that you just do one of the following. Either take a picture of your hand doing that or your head in that pose and use that as your reference, or you can go ahead and obviously you can seek a reference, but you can also check out sites like Pose Maniacs or Magic Poser, or there's also some apps that you can use too, and that's going to help you get to a much better state anatomically speaking. Check this out. That looks a lot stronger now, right? Now the last step here is I want to sharpen up the foreground. See why? In the foreground here, I definitely think that this could be and should be a lot sharper. It's definitely kind of the same blurriness as the background, which I'm not really too keen on, and neither should you, friend, because again, like we just learned in our last example with Cesar, you need to make sure that you work your illustration like your eyes focus. All right, now let's check this thing out. Here's before and boom, here's after. Now it looks really original. It looks definitely like something that a client would want to purchase from you at a really good price point, don't you think? I love helping artists like you on stuff like this, and if you want to learn now how to render your characters a ton better too, friend, make sure you check out this video right here.